because of panic.
Sometimes you find very narrow passages, so narrow that there is not enough space for you to pass with tanks on your back. So what we do in that case, we take the tanks off and push them forward and swim behind them.
This is a dark world of sterile beauty, which man enters at his peril. Many divers feel that it's the closest you can come on Earth to being an astronaut, gliding weightless through a dark, forbidding void.
The light is another problem, because sometimes even you have a very strong light, that could be not enough in a very, very muddy water. So you have to be prepared psychologically to surface just touching the walls or the lifeline.
The golden rule of cave diving is that a third of your air supply must always be held in reserve. This means a diver uses 1/3 of his air on the outward journey, 1/3 for the return, and holds back 1/3 for any emergencies. Even so, things do go wrong, and they did once with Christy.
I had some bad experience underwater in caves. In one situation, I've got stuck in a very narrow passage. In the meantime, I had a regulator failure. I couldn't breathe more. I couldn't find the second regulator because it was not attached on my neck as I used to do normally. And finally, I remember that there is an air bell somewhere ahead me, not very far. And with the last reserve of air in my lungs, I could reach these air bells, and finally, yes, with a hard breath, I could recover my breathing.
This underground world is hostile, not just to man, but to all living beings. In the total darkness, plants cannot use light to make food, so there are no plants, and therefore no food for animals. In all the caves Christy and Sherban have surveyed, the very few creatures they have found on the ground depended on food that had been carried into the cave from the world above, or in the water that ran through it, until they found the cave at Movile. That's why Christy knew something very strange was happening in the newly discovered bug-filled cave. As Movile's cave life was so rich and varied, Christy called in his biologist friend Sherban and asked him to come down to the cave to see if he could work out what was going on there. Sherban was intrigued by his friend's reports of the rich animal life he'd discovered. But he had no idea at that time that this unexplored cave might hold the key to the very origins of life on Earth. The The exploratory shaft the workers had dug cut through the upper end of the cave network, which gradually winds its way down through the limestone strata to a depth of about 20 meters. There the cave reaches the water table, giving access to a small underground lake. Christie named this chamber the lake room. Though the air is breathable here, it smells strongly of sulfur, like rotten eggs.
When we came to do this underwater exploration of the cave, that was the moment when Christie dived first. And he surfaced after a very short period of time, just probably 3 minutes, came back and told me, "Hey Shaban, it's your turn. You have to go there and see what's going on." I've never seen that many animals in one place at a time, in a cave.
Christie wriggled through a very narrow passage and found 2 air bells. He went back quickly and told Shaban.
Just before you start a dive, you have so many thoughts, so many things to worry about that somebody telling you that he found many animals doesn't excite you too much. But once I got into the submerged passage and then surfaced in the air bell and saw the abundance of animals there, that was a really big surprise.